No, that's good. So let's talk about it. How do you become more efficient on first and second down? One of the things that I think a lot of people were talking about, I know Anthony was tweeting about, and Anthony never tweets during Commanders games, but he's like, man, they can't run inside zone for anything right
Yeah.
now. Like, there's not a lot of yards available inside um, for the Commanders in the run game, which obviously is going to hurt your first and second down efficiency. I wasn't watching closely enough to know whether Anthony was dead on an inside zone versus dives versus duos versus whatever. But everyone just thinks those inside gun runs are always inside zone. But like
Right.
whatever they're running, what's going on there that they can't get more yardage off of it? And what else do you see on first and second down that is causing them to be in these situations in the first place?
Yeah, so this is something we could probably spend a lot of time on. And I do think there's a philosophical element here that is really interesting to talk about. So if you look at teams that run the ball on first down quite a bit, like, we talked about Detroit, San Francisco, Miami, these teams, they are not just running, they're running base runs, but they're not base runs, if you know what I mean. Like they are schemed up from an angle and leverage standpoint to maximize that opportunity in a way that a lot of teams that do a lot of gun runs just don't do, because you lose the ability to kind of create the angles that you're looking for. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, on inside zone, let's take inside zone, for example. I don't really want to double team vertically into the defense. I don't want to do that. People say, well, that's what a double team is. You got to be physical. You got to get after it. In the NFL, defensive linemen, they are not here to mess around. They are here to split double teams like absolute maniacs. They're fast, they're big, they're athletic. So I need a little bit of misdirection. And if I could take that double team instead of the guy that's stacked over the three technique to the guy that's stacked over the shade, think about my ability to create horizontal movement as opposed to vertical movement. And so I look at stuff like that. I'm like, that is a tough double team angle. And so that's kind of their philosophy here. They want to throw the ball, and running is a secondary thought. So when you have to run the ball, you have your counter out of gun, you have your inside zone out of gun, and you have maybe an outside zone run out of gun. But you don't game plan those runs to maximize the angles. You're just running those runs. Does that make sense what I'm saying? You're just running
Yeah.
Wanda.
Well, can you give a little bit more of an example of like
Sure.
the difference? So like you have Wanda, your weak side zone, right?
Okay.
How does it look in day one install, which is as far as a lot of teams
Sure.
get, and how does it look for Kyle Shanahan or Mike McDaniel?
So it's gonna. I mean,
What are the subtle
it
differences?
depends on the opponent, but like, let's just this is one thing you could do just as an example, right? So, for example, Wanda is weak side run away from the tight end with no fullback. So think about it. All the offensive line combinations are going to the first linebacker in the box. So if you think about 6-man blocking surface, right? Tight end, 5 offensive linemen, and a running back, right? And then think about it versus a nickel front. So 4 down linemen and 2 linebackers. So we should be able to get hats on hats, right? So obviously the front side tackle, the right tackle in this situation, is going to block the defensive end. They're going to double team the shade with the guard and center to that first linebacker in the box. And then they're going to double team the 3 technique on the backside to the second linebacker in the box. And the tight end's going to cut off the defensive end, right? Easy peasy, right? From the dot, from like behind center, that works really well because I can stay ahead of the center. And then I have to know as the running back that those blocks are out leveraged. So as much as I want to run this outside zone, it's a 9-hole run or an 8-hole run in this case, it's outside zone. It's not true outside zone. It's going to cut back off the first double team because that linebacker is going to step down. The guard's going to have bad leverage, and we're going to wind back probably off that double team to the 3 technique, right? So that's kind of basic Wanda. The second you put it in offset gun, right, you lose the ability to make those linebackers move horizontally, right? Because they don't have to go anywhere because you're behind the center when you get the ball. So they just stay there because you haven't done anything. You haven't moved, right? Like if it's from the dot, I run laterally, they have to match. I'm creating movement just by my angle as the running back, right? They have to match me. So we've created horizontal movement. It's small, but enough that it creates a cutback. When it's an offset gun run, for example, and I do that, the linebackers don't move. The combinations can't get enough movement on the down guy because the linebackers just peel the double teams right away. So that's like a simple schematic thing just from the dot. Now, if Kyle's running it, you're going to get a jet sweep action either to the – so this is what Kyle would do if we're really being honest here, right? What Kyle would do is he'd put the X receiver, so the guy to the open side of the run, in a tight split, and he'd say, go crack the mic. So now that front side double team combination can go to the safety and really ride that double team out of there. And we've created a crease because the receiver's got good leverage to crack the mic. The double team's got excellent leverage to stay and really ride that out. And that's just a simple thing that they've done from a personnel standpoint in San Francisco to get receivers that want to do that kind of stuff.
So the to make this clear, like instead of having to kind of rush up to the second level to get the linebacker, now you're really driving that defensive lineman out of there. And if you hit it right, you've got someone to account for the safety who is supposed to be unblocked in most typical schemes. And that's how you get touchdowns.
Correct. Yes. And that's an easy way. So just think about, how do I maximize each block in the line? And that's what Mike McDaniels does. That's what Kyle does. And that's why they're good at running the football, because they go down the line, they say, is this a good block? No, this is hard. How do we make this easier for our guy? Do we do it with formation? Do we do it with personnel? Do we do it with that? You'll see them run a play. We talked about Zorro earlier, right? Mm-hmm. Zorro used to be tight end fullback. We're mashing this guy. Let's go get this guy. And now they run it with receivers. They have the receiver line up in a tight split. I love this little wrinkle. That Sam linebacker doesn't want to get cracked, so he widens out. So you've created more space in the defense just by using a receiver who the defensive lineman thinks is going to get cracked. So we've added 2 yards of movement that I physically don't have to do. So again, that's the type of stuff that, it's small details, but when you're watching it, you're like, that's what takes a mediocre, average, kind of vanilla NFL running game to the next level. And it takes a lot of time, it takes a lot of film study, it takes a lot of prep, and it needs to be part of your identity. And so I think if I was going to say what the identity of this team was, they are passing to open up running lanes for the running back. That's what they're doing. And I think about like the first couple runs of the Bills game, right? They get the Bills in these 2 safety structures. Then when you run those runs, they're light boxes. It's better for the running back. It's not a priority. You're not doing the Kyle Shanahan bit or the Mike McDaniels bit where you're running teams into heavier box looks to throw. It's the other way around here, I think. And so that's okay. So your passing game is going to be a little bit more complicated. You're going to spend more time on that because that's like your bread and butter driver here. So I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just what this team's identity is at the moment.
Right. So that circles back to like, how does this team be more efficient on first and second down?
Yeah.
And it sounds like I would probably
throw the ball more.
Yeah, throw the ball more and try to get because the first drive or one of the early drives, they get the quick sit route to Logan Thomas. Then they run a similar concept like 3 plays later. It might 100%. Even been the next play, and they just put Terry in that spot. How do you get that stuff more often?
Yeah, and that's tough. I mean, that's why coordinators get paid a lot of money, is like, how do we find. And I think that's where, again, I would probably say, outside the Philly game, that's something that we both think he could be more efficient. EB could probably be a little bit more efficient at, is like, where are my opportunities to find quick, like easy throws in the quick game for the quarterback? Terry's running a stick route. That's great. Easy completion. It's not a sit, but it's a stick. Like, to your point, It's a different concept, but gets the ball there and easy. Logan Thomas on a sit. Easy. Like, can we find more of those? And you can't do it all the time because defenses start to key on it. But what if we do quick game and then we do a run? What if we do, and then the next play is a play action and we hit the thing? You know what I'm saying? Like, that sequencing is so important because it just kind of keeps teams unsettled. And obviously, when you're not efficient on first and second down, you can't get in your sequence. So maybe EB's got this great sequence of plays, but the execution isn't quite there and we don't get where we need to go. So on some of those, so that's what I would say on that. It's just like, for him, you got to throw the ball to get these run looks that you want, and finding with a young quarterback like Sam and a guy who's taking a lot of pressures. We've talked about this a ton. Can we find quicker, easier throws? And that is the challenge of every coordinator in the NFL.
Right. One thing that I did like a lot in this game, specifically in the first half, is throws that are closer to the quarterback are easier. Now, sometimes they're muddier because there's more bodies in there as well. There's linebackers and hook players and safeties coming down, whatever. But if you got to throw the ball outside the numbers, like, that is a long throw. You're going to take longer to see it. You're going to take longer to throw it. And they started moving Terry inside a little bit more. The stick route you mentioned, there's the big play where they get down inside the red zone on a leak route, which is one that, we were talking before the show, like, 7 years ago, only like backup tight ends ran that route
Yeah.
because you want to sneak that guy out of there. And then, the Rams figured like, oh, we can get Cooper Kupp on that. And
Or
the
like,
Vikings were, obviously Kevin brings that to Minnesota after being with Sean in LA and is like, well, I can do that with Justin Jefferson. And you
now
see Terry
everybody does
getting
it,
that leak route where it's like, oh, I'm coming across to block. Just kidding. I'm gone.
yeah.
And it's effective. Yeah, those guys get tracked more. That's the downside. But you start getting a flow, you start getting some of the running going, you start getting some of that stuff. And a guy even like Terry McLaurin can get lost in the wash. But I think EB did a good job in this game where Terry has 11 targets of moving him inside closer to Sam, closer to the ball, and thus making him more available for a couple of those catches. Obviously, some of them are outside. But that was one of the usage things that I liked in this game. I like generally how they use Curtis in this game.
Yeah.
We talked about Jahan on take 5, so people can check that out. But yeah, I mean, I think that, and also they only ran 50 plays. So like everyone's like, oh, you got to get Logan the ball more. You got to get Jahan. You got to get this guy. And it's like, yeah, well, if you were more efficient on first and second down and, we're on the field for more than 4 to 6 plays at a time, then you'd have more targets for people. But those were things that I liked. And I wonder if they can tap into some of those things more and also mix it up, right? Like, can you get Jahan in some of those same spots and hit him on the stick route and like get these guys involved on the easy stuff, and I'll also have it help you be more efficient as an offense.
Yeah, 100%. And you mentioned the first drive. Like, I love the little shovel pass or pitch pass or whatever you call that to Curtis, which is basically a run. And talk about a game plan run. Like, that's great. You got great leverages, great angles, great numbers there. So obviously they have that in there, but to me, it's not going to be off of like your base, Wanda's, counters, GTs, all that kind of stuff. So that's something I think will be kind of interesting to watch is, as this offense matures and as they get into better game flows, like what is their answer? Because again, they've been pretty vanilla from a run game standpoint, but again, you like some of the, like, love that little jet sweep thing to Curtis, love the leak to Terry, love that he's getting targets early. Like, that's all good offensive process. It's just can in this game specifically, be more efficient on first and second down, so you're not in these like really tough leveraged third down situations, so.
Yeah. One thing they also did, I feel like they used a little bit more motion in this game. And it was pretty simple, basic motion, a lot where you'd either start, like most often it was you have the back start split out and then you bring them into the backfield. There was at least one where Terry starts in the backfield and then they like, all right, get out of here.
Yeah.
So there's like some small wrinkles that they're starting to add. And obviously watching Kansas City over the years, like I think EB would love to use a lot more like violent jet sweep type of motions and the orbit motions and things like that maybe that stuff's coming, but for right now, like starting to add a little bit, and we'll see how complicated it gets and how much this offense grows by the end of the year. But anything else offensively that we want to talk about?
No, and just special teams being an extension of the offense was great to see too. So
good job, J-Mo.
Yeah.
Good job, James Garner. By the way, good job to John Harris and Terrell Burgess. And
like
a lot of these guys that get called up, Tariq Castro Fields as a cover guy on punt, like those guys did a really good job. And, we're literally on, Friday's radio show and on Sunday on the pregame, we're like, yo, what's going to happen on punt coverage? Because there's no Christian Holmes, no Percy Butler, no Jeremy Reeves. And turns out it was their best coverage game of the year. So sometimes it'd be good like that. Them, and we'll see how that goes moving forward. All right. Thanks for listening here to Take Command. Take 5 tomorrow with our stories from New York, as obviously Commanders are headed up to the Giants. And then stay tuned. We might have something special for you on Friday. At the very least, we're going to have a Giants Commanders preview, but we might even have a special guest. So we're working on that. And hopefully we'll tweet that out beforehand. So stay tuned to the social medias for that, for confirmation. In between now and then, I'll also see you on the radio 4 to 7 for the Hoffman Show. For Logan Paulson, I am Craig Hoffman. Thanks for listening to Take Command. Thanks for watching this clip of Take Command. First, why don't you like it? It lets other people know that it was good, and then they should watch it too. And Logan, we have a new exclusive home for full episodes.
We do. 1067 The Fans YouTube page. Go check it out and please subscribe.
Yeah, do what Logan said.
Do it.
Very, very smart.